I do a lot of live streaming on Instagram and Facebook, and obviously this is going to be posted in posterity, so it'll be rewatched in the future if streamership is a little bit low. But today, talking about, it was a year ago today, more or less, that I put the Shroot 2 up for sale. The Fuzzimp Shroot 2 was the most popular and best-selling pedal in my lineup. If you don't know, maybe you missed my uploads the last year and a half or whatever, but I make pedals for a living full-time now. I work from my home in the Pacific Northwest and build and produce pedals that are played all over the world, including the Shroot series, which is a Marshall in a box overdrive type pedal that is, it's really popular. It's very versatile and dynamic, and I'm going to be playing it and talking about it a little bit today. So hopefully, we get a couple people to come hang out, and I hope you guys enjoy this stream. I'm going to see if I can flip the camera so we can get a little better image quality. Maybe not. But regardless, I hope you all are doing well. Fuzzimp.com, code Shroot, all caps, spelled how I spell it, so SHROOT, gets you $20 off. It was the classic coupon I think I launched the pedal with and was in a lot of the ad campaigns back then. It's still active. You can still use it. And we're going to play it. And so I know that it's, those of you who have seen the ads on Facebook or Instagram or a lot of my posts, you know that this is the most popular pedal. And it's even how some people first heard of the company, was the original 3-knob version. But yeah, let's play it a little bit and then we'll do some more history. So what I've got here is everything on 5 except for the Bears control, which is the gain control, is at 2. And we'll start with some blues riffs. So you can see at the lower volume, still this bell-like glassy, amp. I am playing on the single coil P90. There's a tiny bit of noise there, but I have my amp up really loud. If you're not familiar with this guitar, this is my Trash Caster. It just has an assortment of different pickups that I found and threw in, including a budget Hot Rails and a P90 that was from a Telly that I had last year. And I pulled it out to put a DiMarzio in, but yeah. In the bridge humbucker mode, here's clean. Gain a little bit lower on the Shroot 2 is because it allows a little more of that dynamic response that you can get from the different pickups. So like I go to the neck pickup and go clean, it can go really clean. Just rolling back the volume just a little bit. In the room, I'm playing through my Marshall Origin and 412 cab, the same setup that every demo has been shot on for the entire company, but. Yeah, so it's pretty clean, especially if you play soft. But then dig in. I think the original demo on Instagram that did really well was kind of that sound that I just played, where kind of running through these simple power chords and just showing the dynamics, especially as you build with the pick attack, and really pull a lot more out of it. Now, that's kind of the core sound, like especially if I turn everything to noon. You get more of that saturation. It still has all the dynamic response, but it's not going to be quite as sensitive to those pickup, the volume changes and the picking dynamics. pickup setup, I have to roll almost all the way back to get that cleaner sound. But then you've got this blues thing. When you start playing those 80s legato things, turn the gain all the way up. Definitely more in that, you're getting a lot more volume saturation and a lot more of that harmonic content, very mid-forward kind of voicing, but then you have the punch control, which also can further push those upper mids up and give you a little more of that stringy pick articulation. I say that a lot because it is a very articulate pedal, and when I'm dialing in a drive, I really want to get some of that character where the stringiness is there, the detail is there, in the riff. That's one of the big things that I like about using a pedal and tube amp setup, is that you get a lot more of those player dynamics versus things like modelers, which can sound really good recorded, but in the room and as you're playing it, you miss out on some of those dynamics, and that's where I think this pedal really shines. Obviously, it can be at home in any setup, but you can use this pedal, and because it's all analog, it just responds so well to the picking dynamics, etc. So. And like I said, really into that 80s kind of thing. We're in the bridge pickup, mid-forward bridge pickup, fairly mid-forward amp, but set, neutral, and warm. You notice I'm picking pretty hard because I want to pull that drive. I want to feel that feel because. So we'll turn that mids up. Check this out. So now we've got a lot more of that articulation. You're hearing a lot more of the pickup. So that's the thing, as you start cranking up the gain on the Shroot 2, you get more of that. Now, in the original demos, when I was playing my Schecter guitar with the EMGs, which, obviously EMGs have more push and bite and output, I was pulling metal sounds out of it that other people maybe have struggled to get. And a lot of that comes from you're maxing out the gain, you're adding more brightness, but then also pushing the master volume on the pedal, because it's not like a lot of other master volumes on pedals where it's just attenuating the volume. It's actually kind of active in the circuit, so it's enabling more clipping, more saturation, etc. Because you'll hear it, especially the front end of my tube amp, and it's pushing it really hard, but you're going to hear this extra layer and almost this presence that comes over the top as I turn up the volume on this pedal, because I think it has this extra oomph to it that comes from the volume control. So we'll start with I'm going to turn the kick punch bears, which is gain, and then I'm going to leave the beats at about 4, because as I increase this, it also increases kind of that presence, that hair on the sound. And so the active tone control that's at the top, the beats control, is able to kind of smooth some of that over and make it a little less, it's not necessarily super fizzy, but it definitely has a lot more hair on the higher frequencies, upper mid. So we'll start here. And you'll hear as I increase the volume, obviously there's going to be more noise. This is a high gain pedal now, pushing a lot of dB into the front end of this amp, but you can hear the difference in the amount of gain really clearly. The volume isn't just, it's almost like attenuating that amp channel sound. It's a very different thing than just a volume control. As you can hear it, like when it really opens up over the top, you start to really hear that definition in air. And that's why in my original demos, I would goose the volume so much, because it would push my amp into further saturation. Now the downside is the Marshall clean preamp saturates really quickly, but as you continue to push it, it just kind of imparts more of that saturated front end character. And so the downside there is that a lot of my pedals that do have a lot of boost, because a lot of them do, because they were made to compete with high gain pickups, high output pickups. Because there's nothing worse than a drive that is quieter when the volume is maxed out than your hot pickups into your clean amp, your clean tube amp specifically. So anyway, just a note about some of the earlier demos. If it's been a while since you've seen one or heard some of the settings, this pedal is very interactive. All the controls are active and interactive, and so different combinations of settings will yield really different results. And especially the punch control goes from this nice kind of mid sweetness to dimed. It becomes that chainsaw. It's around 1.1K. It's not quite as harsh as something like an HM2 where it's so nasally and thin, but it definitely is pushing that similar frequency up, and you can hear that in the articulation. So we'll start with the kind of zero everything back out, but you'll hear this really quickly as I increase the punch control, how it goes from mid chainsaw, and that's at the very end of its travel. Just backing that up from max to a little bit less, there's still a lot of aggression and mid forward saturation there, but it's not nearly in the same range or realm as that HM2 chainsaw when it's maxed out. It sounds still more like the modded Marshall in a box thing that it's known for. That really is what this pedal is. It's not a fuzz pedal. And I say sometimes it's a high gain overdrive. I've had a hard time marketing exactly what the Shroot 2 sounds like, because it is such a versatile pedal that it kind of occupies its own space. It's not necessarily a pedal that is defined by any one simple label, but I would lean it more into the high gain overdrive amp in a box pedal. It has distortion sounds. Obviously, you can get where you're getting a lot of clipping, but I wouldn't say it gets to the point of full square wave clipping like a fuzz, even though I've had debates with people before. They're like, well, it says fuzz amp on it, and it's like, yes, that is the name of the company, but the more popular, oh, one sec, Brandon, I'm trying to see your comment better. Oop. Well, let's see. Oops. Sorry for poking on the camera. I was trying to see that. There we go, live chat. There we go. Less, yeah, and there is. I've discussed the possibility of leaning more into that and maybe creating something that's more of an HM2, because I actually really have been obsessed not that long ago with the HM2 and kind of that chainsaw sound. especially if it can be done more musically, because I really think that that's important, is that if you're going to do kind of that aggressive scooped distortion fuzz with that aggressive mid, is that it needs to be tamed slightly and not so boomy, and you know, the option to have the more warm and conventional things, not just it's one setting that's just all the way crazy, you know. And so anyway, that's a little bit of the philosophy behind the Shroot 2. The only thing that has been a piece of user feedback in the past, and this was kind of intentional, was the kick control is subtle. The reason for that is that I was worried if I gave it too much power initially, because it is a 100 hertz, 6 dB range or so. It's able to shave off about that much or boost about that much, and it's pre-game, so it's pretty subtle intentionally. And all I really meant it to be, because a lot of the modern metal players like to roll off the low end before drive, was to be able to give it that capability. But I was worried if I gave it too much power forward so you could boost the bass a lot higher, it would get too muddy. Now, I have done some testing. I took one of these and modded it and started playing around with that frequency and giving it a lot more power, and it's capable of still retaining a lot of clarity. And so there may come a version where it's either a 3-band EQ, or I'll do a whole new take on this circuit that's not a Shroot, and kind of be my answer to the HM2 chainsaw sound, which is kind of what I've been leaning towards, was maybe offering my take on it. As you can hear, this is close, but I'd like to get a little more low end. And obviously this is over a phone mic that's compressed, but you can get an idea still of what I'm doing. So yeah, and obviously when you are boosting that 1.1K and have a lot of gain behind it, it's starting to pick up, you know, some of the string ring and some of that. So, you know, if you want to run, and it's a high gain pedal at that point, really high gain. And so when it's max gain, you know, max mids, you're effectively running a boost pedal with upper mids and the drive at the same time. And so, you know, probably want to gate that if you want to keep it super, super tight. But that being said, I know in the past, the only one thing I might change now is that some people were saying, I can't hear what that kick control is doing because it's so subtle. And I agree that to a point it is, but the point was, so like, let's say we're playing here. Like those low mids, lows are a little bit thick sounding. It's not bad, but with it boosted all the way up, that's what it sounds like. And then like those palm mutes immediately got tighter. Like that was the point of that control, was just to slightly tighten up palm mutes without, you know, getting too thin or too muddy. And that's why it has such a limited range. But it still is really effective for that. And you can really hear this at the low gain, because I wanted to be able to, this pedal needed to be able to do a handful of things. It was a nice crunch sound, so like an amp in the box crunch, like that big power, open power chord thing. And also be able to replace what people use a tube screamer for, which is as a boost to kind of brighten and tighten the sound, but also to play, you know, blues licks and things like that. even taking into account some of the chainsaw things that the Shroot 2 can do stock as it is right now, there's still a lot more of the low mid in the 200 hertz range than that pedal has significantly scooped out. And so there's part of me that is definitely thinking whatever I do next with it, I want to be able to attenuate that frequency range. 1K, giving an active 1K is extremely useful. You can scoop it for some clarity and kind of openness without it getting too muddy, or you can boost the 1K and get, chainsaw and the extra articulation and all that stuff. So the 1K definitely is a really useful frequency range. The 100 hertz, I want to give it 10 dB instead of 6 or 5 like it is right now. And definitely give an active 200 hertz control somewhere in the 10 dB range so you can really scoop it and get that aggression. Now, it might get a little more lost in the mix if you go max scoop, but it's going to have that aggression, and it has so much volume and gain and everything else that it's still going to sound good in a mix and into other amps and things like that. So I think I'm really close to the design for what will eventually become the next evolution of this circuit, but I'm not sure when or if that will come out this year, and if it will even be a Shroot product, if it would be something completely different. But that being said, I'm still making Shroot 2s, still making Shroot Originals, the 3-knob version, which has a really different voicing because of the part choices. The Shroot Original 3-knob is still hand soldered that I do myself, so I load all the parts and solder them one at a time, and I don't mind that, especially for that parts count. I'm still able to keep up with orders on that pedal as it is. But the Shroot 2 was so popular and exploded so fast, I had to go to SMT, assembly ready, to kind of get production up to speed, because that first weekend or week or so, I think there's about 50 sold, and so it happened very quickly, having to make this jump from a handful of pedals today to trying to push out 10 plus every weekday. And yeah, and it works. And so that was a big evolution and step for the company back when it happened. And for those of you, we'll do a little history lesson. I covered some of this on a Facebook post earlier today and a little bit on my Instagram post, because it is the anniversary coming up on the 24th is the anniversary of the Shroot 2. So I'm talking about it and playing and talking about the coupon and all that. But yeah, fuzzimp.com, Shroot, spelled how I spell it, all caps, gets you $20 off. Get yourself a little discount coupon if you've been looking to get one for a while. And yeah, so the story of the Shroot 2 is, as I renamed the company, because the original company was called FuzzSimp. For some of you that weren't around for those days, it was fairly short-lived. It was only about 3 or 4 months. I had a pedal called the Crusher that was the exact circuit board that we put in the Shroot 2, because the original FuzzSimp pedal that the original Shroot was based on was the Crusher, and it was based on a DAM Sonic Titan and modified and carefully chose, especially as one of the key components is the JFET. Like the JFET and the tuning of that pedal internally really shapes its capabilities and what it's able to do. And so the original pedal that became the Shroot was called the Crusher. I renamed it. It's called that now. Became the Shroot, was the most popular pedal of April of that year, of that first year, that was kind of blew up the company, and it was really exciting. Ended up retiring it for a few months, trying to focus on original designs. I was really paranoid about getting a C&D because of the artwork, even though everything trademarked is misspelled and it's homage, but without ripping off. Hopefully, I was like trying to skate by, without infringing on anybody's trademarks. But I was really paranoid that, I transitioned to full-time pedals. I want to keep doing this for a living, so discontinued the Shroot original temporarily, brought it back, started work on what this is. It was called the Crusher. It was an effort to make a modern metal overdrive, or make a metal channel in a box. That's why I gave it, those specific frequency ranges and it turned out really good. And I obviously still love the circuit enormously today. But the 5-knob Crusher was a very short-lived pedal because it was really difficult to talk people into buying them. I think during that time it was summer, and I was it was summer. I was trying to come up with ideas, and I was trying to push this new premium pedal. I just had a hard time selling. I think I sold about 10, 12 of the original black crushers with the white font that's identical in circuit-wise to the Fuzzimp Shroot 2. And for a little bit, I offered both because it was the same board, so all I had to do was order the different case. But anyway, Crusher didn't perform super well. I was really bummed about it. And I thought back, I was like, well, the last time that a pedal really blew up was the original Shroot. And I really didn't want to at the time. I wanted to lean into my own original fuzz offerings and things like that. But I was like, well, the company really needs, an influx of sales to sustain this. Summer was a little brutal last year and this year. But anyway, to put a cap on it, I decided, okay, I'm going to change the graphic for the Crusher, make the Shroot 2. I'm sure it'll do really well. So, overnight, got with my artist. And I think I did this one myself, just using, I kind of traced the original clip art in a program and then flipped it so it's the dual image, and then put all the labels on it and designed the case and sent it off to get printed. And of course, that weekend, September 24th of last year, as soon as it was live and the ads were running, people were going crazy for it because it sounds so good. It's a little higher gain, it has a little more saturation than the original version. It looks cool. It was a really fair price point, and it started to sell like crazy. And it marked a big shift in the company because I went from, kind of a slower sales, not getting people as engaged. It just exploded kind of overnight. I think there's a whole bunch of sales that came in all at once. So one of the things that, and I'll show this on my prototype thing that I have here. One of the things about the Shroot 2 launch was the knobs that I showed in the original, the knobs that I showed in the original setup didn't, they ran out of stock. I kept running out of, my supplier was short on inventory of those knobs, and so here, we'll flip the camera around. And so this was the original knob that I showed in all the advertising. Immediately bought these out of stock. I think there was like a couple hundred. I bought them all. I switched to MXR style for a while because they did have some of those in stock in purple, and then I went to green. I think I went to green of this style for a bit too. Was trying to keep purple at least to match what I had advertised with, because there was people constantly ordering, and then I was trying to keep updates on the product page about what they were looking like. And then quite a bit of last year was these, and I came close to buying them completely out of stock of these. And eventually now, fast forward to today, these are in stock pretty regularly, and thankfully I can ship pretty much all of them with these. But this little Shroot 2 exposition, photo is just showing kind of the evolution of this pedal. It was a really intense and exciting time to be selling a lot of pedals, to get a lot of people interested in the company for the first time. Now, obviously, I have, these are some of the other pedals that I was jamming earlier, not on this stream, but on Facebook. So I have, the Obtainium, I have the Sender and Hammered Copper. And then I have the two new fuzzes, if you haven't seen, the Adventure and the Creature, which are both fuzz offerings that are really cool. So, oh, sorry, we gotta rotate and adjust the camera again. But yeah, so it's kind of me recapping what happened with the Shroot 2 last year. It was a huge deal, and I know a lot of customers bought them. I'm really appreciative for everyone that's been supporting the company, maybe waited a little bit longer. Oh yeah, and if you need a little better discount coupon, you can always email the Fuzzimp email. I want to make my pedals as accessible as possible. So if you're wanting to snag a Creature soon and need a discount coupon, just give me a shout on the social medias or whatever, and I'll do my best to make a deal that people can afford. But yeah, the Shroot 2 was a huge deal. It really changed things. Last summer was really trying to get some momentum back. I think I maybe took on a little too many orders because I just left it kind of uncapped. So I was playing catch up a lot of October and November. As sales kept coming in, it was a lot. I mean, building I think 200 in those 6-7 weeks leading up to Black Friday. It was a lot, and then obviously trying to get as many done as possible and fighting supply chain issues going into December. But it's still a pedal I enjoy. I still love building these and playing these, even though hundreds now of them having been built. It's still the flagship pedal, and I'll always appreciate it. Even if someday I do get a C&D for the artwork or something, I will still probably evolve the circuit further, maybe attempt to rename it again and do a new piece of art. But it's yeah, it's a cool pedal. To be known for, if I'm going to be known for the one pedal I'm known for, I'm not too upset that it's that one. It made an impact and it changed my life. I went from working a day job to building pedals for a living and been able to sustain it for the most part since. I've had to kick in a couple side gigs here and there. This year's been really weird for a lot of people, not just me, I'm sure. But, I'm still building a lot of pedals, still shipping a lot of pedals, and having a really good time. And there's a chance I'll get a 3 out this year, but I'm not sure yet. So stay tuned for everything that's coming with the company. I still have a couple ideas I'd like to try and get out this year. So it just depends on what happens. Sales are really good and I'm able to push some pedals through the prototyping cycle and get 1 or 2 more out this year, I would love to, but we'll just have to see what happens. But the Shroot 2, it's a big deal. It is the best-selling pedal ever in the history of the company. It accounts for 20%, 25% of all sales of Fuzz Amp ever. It's the one that got dealers excited about Fuzz Amp. It's a really neat pedal, and it still sounds really good to me. You would think I would lose some of that, love for this pedal just because I built so many of them and went through some stressful times last year trying to get them all out, but it's still really good, and I like building them. And I like that it gets people excited about the company. It's been the gateway for a lot of repeat customers and a lot of people to check out some of the more obscure circuits, more fuzzy circuits, because that was always my goal, right? I love fuzz in general. I like that I finally am able to get the sounds I like from fuzz pedals. When I was young, I would buy all these fuzz pedals, but my rig just didn't sound good with them. I think that was a big thing for me was, I know a lot of people too, maybe this is their experience, you get a Big Muff or whatever other fuzz pedal that you can find, and it's a little bit muddy and you're having a hard time playing it, you can't do some of your same tricks, it doesn't palm mute, some of these things. So it took me a while to finally find an amp rig and sound that I liked for playing fuzz, but once I locked it in, I just was all about it. Oh yeah. And the thing is that I think once you really find a good fuzz and kind of can play nice with fuzzes, it opens up all these different tonal possibilities. And maybe, your main power chord riff in your song isn't using a fuzz pedal primarily, but like an intro or a lead or an outro or something, there's a place for that sound in a lot of people's setups. And I think that's really where it shines. And so kind of having a cool day of reflection and jamming on the Shroot 2 specifically, and talking about it. I know that I kind of put out some initial demos, and I mentioned this earlier in the stream if you missed it. I used to push the volume on the Shroot 2 really hard to saturate the front end of my amp more. And I also incorporated a change. So there's been, the early ones had a different taper pot. They had a logarithmic taper pot, not non-audio taper. So they would, technically it made the pedal louder. So if you had it at noon, it was way over unity. It was like +6 over unity. So I switched now, and have for quite a while, to using an A value pot at A100K. So now that sweet spot is easier to dial in if you're not running a tube amp that's saturating and you want to find that sweet spot without it being too loud, because that was a complaint I had a couple times. Gosh, your pedals are so loud. And I was like, no, they're fine. Well, you know, some players that use vintage Telly or Strat pickups into a Princeton that has that really linear front end that just gets a lot louder instead of clipping like the Marshall does. The volumes on a lot of my pedals were way too loud, because you would go for noon, and if it's +6 and your pickups aren't very hot, then it ends up sounding like the pedal is just way entirely too loud. Well, changing that taper, it's a lot easier to find that sweet spot, and people have been getting along with them a lot more. So I incorporated that across the lineup pretty consistently on virtually every pedal, because I finally realized, like, oh, I really do want everyone to be able to use these a lot better. And yeah, so that's a little bit of the history and journey of Fuzz Amp in the last year and the Shroot 2. It was a big deal, and it still is a big deal. I'm glad that people are still enjoying them and playing them and buying them occasionally. And yeah, it's been a week of remembering. I remember it kind of flipped a switch from, you know, summer slowly starts ramping up through Labor Day, and then it goes, it just takes off through the rest of the year. I'm really looking forward to catching that wave again, being really busy and cranking out a ton of really good pedals for people. And it's going to be really exciting. But yeah, the Adventure and the Creature as well. If you haven't seen those recent demos, I really Creature has been getting a lot of looks. It's a really cool fuzz pedal. If you remember, there was a launch of a pedal called the Machina that eventually had to be discontinued or special order only because it was so time consuming to build. And now I've since transitioned that into what is now the Creature by making it both circuits in series instead of 2 independent channels. And during that transition, we use new parts, because it's an assembled board instead of being 2 independent hand-wired boards with off-board pots, maybe adding some noise. But anyway, we were able to fully transition the Machina circuit into the Creature, make it compact, make it user-friendly. And I've been sharing as many demos as I can, explaining how to use that pedal because it's so good and it can do so many different things. And I think that's one thing I want to focus on moving forward, is that there's so many different pedal companies and pedals, right? But I want to make stuff that really is moving forward and offering sounds that you can't just get dime a dozen dirt sounds, you know. I know there's always going to be a market for people who want the more extreme side. They want more interesting things. And thankfully, the Creature is able to do conventional and very unconventional sounds, including being a standalone drone synth. You know, you can have no guitar plugged into it, and it can self-oscillate on its own and make crazy, you know, screaming sub-synth sounds and a little bit of synth sounds. But then you dial in the gates and the bias on the front, and then you have a gated distortion that you can use with no noise between your notes. And it does some other things that are really neat, but Creature is super cool. Adventure is super cool if you haven't seen that one yet. The Behringer Sf 300 / Boss FZ2 is a very popular pedal for doom music and a lot of other genres. And I think even Sweetwater just announced that their best-selling pedal of all time, or of last year or whatever, was the Sf 300. So this is that circuit with some modifications, but completely blendable. And I know there was a lot of people talk about setting 1.5, which is the 2 fuzzes. Well, my pedal enables you to get anything between all 3 sounds, because you're able to blend the clean and the fuzz and the octave. So you're able to get anything in between. So if you find that sweet spot where you have just a bit of, you know, op amp fuzz from that's non-octave mixed with clean, you know, you can hit overdrive through that and get a chug sound that's really cool and stuff like that. So still producing really interesting things, and hopefully people like the new direction of the company. We'll see if I can do another edition of the Shroot this year. I'm not sure if I will. Part of me wants to make the modifications to the EQ that I did. It's a little bit subtle, but it does make a difference to the low control, giving the low control more power essentially. I could leave the Shroot 2 exactly how it is and just change how much power the low control has, and it gets close to the sound I want. But I really want to do a 3-band EQ version where you're able to dial back the low mid for the aggressiveness, and as well as some other ideas. So thanks everybody for hanging out, and if you're watching the stream later, thanks for tuning in, and if you made it to this point in the video, I really appreciate it. And so I'm gonna log off for now. I have to run to the post office to do my drop-offs, and we will catch up with you very soon. So I hope you all have a good day. Enjoy your fuzzy pedals. Consider buying some other ones. If you need to, maybe work out a deal, get a hold of me via social media. Every once in a while, the inboxes have been, I'm not getting my notifications as quick as I'd like, especially on Instagram. I don't follow a lot of accounts, so I have to go to that other inbox, and then on Facebook, sometimes I'm getting them randomly. So, always feel free to email or DM, and I'll get back to you very quickly. Normally I do, but if I don't get the notification, you have to forgive me for coming back to you, an hour or two later. But I make an effort to try and be on top of it. So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for celebrating the anniversary of the Shroot 2 with me. I'm sure I'll do some more content this weekend and even tomorrow. Just talking a lot about it because it is the best-selling pedal. I'm sure a lot of people are still eyeing them or considering buying them. So thank you all, and I hope you have a good afternoon.